basically, this story is, you know, this is about just people messaging me, looking at my brother's criminal history, and trying to use that as a means to try to hurt my family, try to hurt me, try to make me look like a bad person. And this is actually, from this is actually a really beautiful story about my mother. All right, and I know my brother wouldn't care when I talk about this. But essentially, yeah, my brother went to prison for 10 years. In high school, he got caught up in the wrong crowd. He was a skateboarder, and he just made friends with the wrong people. Some background on this. And I can't speak for Europe, but at least in America, you're not judged on what your family does versus more like in specifically Nigeria. If you have a criminal in the family, it's like your entire family looks bad. So that's why they're trying to do it from that angle. They're trying to use my brother as a means to justify that I'm a bad person in some way. And that's just not how Americans think. So I'm addressing this because it's actually a beautiful story, and I learned a lot from my mother's actions, actually. My mother is a saint. I'm telling you, that woman is a saint. So anyways, my brother got mixed up in the wrong crowd, and they like to just basically steal cars and go for joyriding. You know, he was 18 years old, wasn't really thinking about the consequences. It was kind of just like a competition amongst guys who could like do whatever. And eventually, mostly he never hurt anyone. He never had a violent crime. It was nothing like that. It was all they just stole cars, wouldn't joyride them, and then left them places. Unfortunately, in Oregon, there's a law where felonies stack. So if you do multiple crimes and can get convicted of multiple things, you get more time. There's no deal made. There's no like consolidating it together into one shorter sentence, which is really, really sad because there was a guy in the town that actually went to prison for being a child pedophile, and he was only in prison for a year, and my brother got 10 years, which is really sad because the law values property, a car, more than a human suffering, which I think is kind of messed up, to be honest with you. I'm not trying to put Nigeria down. I'm just strictly talking about the culture as I know it. If I am wrong, please correct me, but I have been to Nigeria many times, and I was married to a Nigerian, and I have half Nigerian children, so it is my responsibility as a father to know the culture to the best of my capability, which is why I lived there for a little while. I have been to Edo State, Delta State. I've been to a few other states that I can't remember unless they're said to me. We actually did a crazy thing where we drove from Delta State to Lagos. That was a really interesting car ride. And every time we went through a police checkpoint, we had to make sure we hide the Oibo. So that was fun. Anyways, so here's the beauty of this story. I was personally mad at my brother that he was stupid enough to do that, and then because I didn't. After 18, I didn't really see him much until he was 28. So he got out last year. So here's the beauty of this story and the life lesson that I would love to emulate with my own parenting. Sorry, I'm clearing my throat so much. My fascial chain here is so stiff that sometimes I need to get it treated. Anyways, so myself, my brother, my father, we didn't really visit my brother much. In 10 years, I visited him twice because I was sort of like, you dug your hole, now just lay in it until you get out. But my mother's love was a different story. She went and visited him every week. week in and week out for a decade. Think about that. My mother drove and visited him every week without fail, and the only time she couldn't was during a few months during COVID. Every week, week in and week out. That is dedication as a parent. That shows your child, in this case my brother, that no matter their mistakes, you still love them, and you're still there for them, and you still support them. And what I noticed is my brother stayed away from the bad people in prison. He didn't get in any trouble. He was a model citizen in there, and and as a result, he eventually got certain privileges where he was actually put to work as a welder. So he went into a training program within the prison system to become a welder.